are Zara Energetically New York and Energetically New York Elixir good fragrances or not? And is Energetically New York super similar to the epic Labo Santal 33, like a lot of people seem to think? Both of these were created for Zara by Jo Malone. So I'm going to go through what they smell like, performance, usage, talk about compliments and mass appeal and more. And also go into if they are similar and how they are different. If you're a subscriber, come on, hit that subscribe right now. Then you know that I'm mostly about the juice inside the bottles. The bottles are a nice thing if they are a nice thing. But with that said, I gotta say that I do think they did a good job with the newer Elixir bottles. The bottle design is probably the most sort of a luxurious looking Zara ever made, and it also has a magnetic cap. And this is how a smaller bottle of the original looks. So I can't remember exactly what I paid for the OG, but the new Elixir cost me around 45 bucks for 100 ml. So let's start with the original and the opening. This, on my skin at least, opens up in quite a woody way. So I do feel the opening is pretty much dominated by something woody, but woody in quite a light way. And after just a few seconds, in comes quite a noticeable spicy kick. Yeah, for sure, a very noticeable dose of spiciness in the opening together with quite a prominent woodiness. However, I do feel, even though this is quite intensely spicy and woody, there's light kind of feel to it all. There's absolutely nothing heavy about the scent so far. And the more it moves away from the opening, the more I feel you start getting soft and light kind of powderiness. So this, at least on my skin and at least to my nose, at the heart of it, is mostly something that is quite woody, but woody in a sort of a creamy and light way together with quite prominent dose of spiciness, and it's softly powdery. So I'm gonna let it dry down and spray on the new Elixir. So moving on to the Elixir, and according to Zara, this is supposed to be like a more intense version of the OG. Even though, at least based on the notes, they aren't supposed to be that different, I do find the newer Energetically New York Elixir to actually be quite different compared to the OG. I mean, it is indeed a lot more intense. The woodiness cuts through in more intense and a lot more sort of a noticeable way. The spiciness here is, at least to my nose, richer, deeper and warmer. Whereas the original Energetically New York goes in a sort of woody and spicy direction that is of the lighter kind. The Elixir right away feels a lot more amped up, and it does feel like a richer, deeper and also less sort of a light and more warm version of the OG. And I do feel there's something sort of suede, leathery-ish to this, which basically adds a bit of richness and depth in combination with its woodiness and the spicy part of it. But with that said, I do feel that the leather, the suede in here, is of the smooth kind. I do not feel this has a leather like, let's say, Tom Ford's ombre leather or fragrances like that. So the heart of Energetically New York Elixir, to my nose, is basically a combination of woodiness, like a creamy kind of woodiness, together with a bit of spicy warmth and that quite smooth dose of leather. So before we go into the drawdown, I do want to talk about the gender here. So like always, wear whatever you want, whatever makes you happy. However, once these two move into the heart, I do feel that the original Energetically New York is very much a unisex kind of scent. But the new Elixir, to my nose at least, definitely leans more masculine. I don't think it's a super masculine scent, but the Elixir is definitely, at least to my nose, a more masculine leaning scent. So moving on to the drawdown of the original Energetically New York. The drawdown is where I feel a soft floral side is pushing through, and here's where I feel this starts to get a bit interesting, because I know on some the floral side of this is very, very prominent. However, on my skin, the floral side of it basically takes a backseat to the woodiness and spiciness and adds this sort of soft kind of floral freshness to it all that on my skin is not overly sort of a floral. And to sum up the original Zara Energetically New York, on my skin this is basically a spicy and woody scent with a sort of a soft kind of floral freshness to it. So I'm gonna get to performance in a short while, but I gotta say that I do enjoy the overall vibe and feel of this sort of a softer scent. However, I do wish that it would last a bit longer. So moving to the drawdown of Zara Energetically New York Elixir, and this is where I feel these two start to move a bit sort of a further apart. So whereas the OG has sort of a soft kind of floral freshness to it, that part in here is really not the same. The drawdown of the Elixir, at least on my skin, is mostly about the combination of woodiness together with that suede. So woody and leathery with a bit of spiciness to it. And I do feel it's thanks to the more noticeable sort of a soft floral freshness of the original that pulls this in a more sort of a unisex direction, whereas this that leans more sort of intensely woody, also sort of more intensely spicy, and the addition of leather pulls this in a more masculine direction. So I know the big question a lot of people will have is how close, or are they even close to what I think is the epic Santal 33 from Labo. So as you can see from the dent I put into it, this is a fragrance I really enjoy. I absolutely love Santal 33. What an epic scent it is. To me, it's very addictive, and it's also an epic head turner. These are Santal 33 leaning. They have a sort of a Santal 33 vibe. However, I do not feel these two are very similar to Santal 33. The dry kind of woodness with the sandalwood and the cardamom that is pushing through with both of these, and the, at least to my nose, soft powerness of these sort of a lean into something that could be described as a bit sort of a Santal 33-ish. However, the floor side of the original is definitely not something that you get in this. The Elixir, with its more potent combination of sandalwood and suede, in a way sort of leans a bit more towards something that is Santal 33-ish. However, I gotta say, none of these two are as epic as Santal 33. These two do not have all the layers and nuances that this thing has. So let's talk a bit about the vibe of these two. I do feel that the OG Energetically New York is something, could almost be described as something that is luxurious, but luxurious in a casual way, like effortless elegance, if that makes sense. The softness of it is something that makes me want to spray it on like a lazy Sunday morning. So casual, but casual in a classy way. Energetically New York Elixir is sort of has the same vibe. However, it's richer and slightly deeper scent, at least to my nose, gives it more sort of a formal and in a way a bit more sort of a classy vibe. So let's talk a bit about the performance of these two. Now, the original Energetically New York does have above average projection, but only for like an hour or two. After like an hour or two, the scent cloud of the original Energetically New York gets a lot smaller. The performance of the newer Energetically New York Elixir, at least on my skin, is a lot better if I compare it to this. And the projection, while not being beast mode, is definitely a lot more noticeable if you compare it to the original. So let's talk about compliments and mass appeal. The OG is definitely a compliment getting kind of scent. However, since the performance sort of wears off quite quickly, I do feel that you need to reapply this quite often. But as long as someone gets a bit closer to you, they'll most likely enjoy the scent of it. The new Elixir is definitely more noticeable with its sort of a stronger scent cloud, and that in a way might lead to more compliments. However, comparing them scent-wise, I actually feel that the original is slightly more mass appealing. They are not at the top of the most compliment getting kind of scents out there, but they are both quite likable. So let's talk a bit about usage, so like seasons and occasions. When it comes to seasons, both of these, I mean, none of these two, at least to my nose, are overly deep, heavy, overly sweet, overly anything basically. So I do feel you can use both of these throughout the year. The original does have quite a noticeable sort of fresh side to it. However, none of these are, at least to my nose, fresh scents. So these two are not something that I will be reaching for on a super warm day when I want to have something quite fresh on me. As for occasions, the original anytime really. I mean, lazy Sunday is perfect for that. When you're going out, regardless if you're going for groceries, if you're going out for a cup of coffee, or if you're gonna meet up with your friends, I do feel the OG works for pretty much any occasion. Pretty much the same thing with the Elixir. However, since this is a bit more sort of formal and classy, I do feel this is like perfect with a suit and tie. Or to put that in another way, the more formal and classy vibe of this leans more for those kind of occasions. But with that said, you can pretty much spray on the Elixir for any occasion. So who are these for? I do feel that the sort of a baseline here is that if you love and enjoy the scent of sandalwood, i.e. quite woody scents, then yeah, these might be something for you. If you also love a bit of spiciness with a focus on cardamom, then yeah, these might be something for you. Both of these have a soft kind of powderiness to them, so I do feel that you can't be allergic to a bit of powderiness. But with that said, I do not feel any of these two are overly powdery. If you think you like that together with a bit of sort of a soft floral freshness, then the OG might be something that you might enjoy. And if you think you'll enjoy that, but with a bit of a smooth and soft suede, then you might enjoy the Elixir. Make sure you stay away if you do not enjoy spicy and woody scents. And if you want something with sort of a soft Santal 33 vibes, then yeah, both of these might be something for you. So I could go on and on when it comes to alternatives, because there are so many woody and spicy scents out there with a focus on sandalwood. However, it really does feel like they sort of wanted a bit of Santal 33 vibes, that they wanted these to have a bit of Santal 33 vibes. So yeah, the obvious alternative is of course Santal 33. It's really expensive, but I absolutely love Santal 33. So how am I going to rate these two, and which of them do I think is the best? So here's the thing, I actually overall do prefer the original. However, since the original starts to wear off quite sort of early, or at least to my nose a bit too soon, and since this lasts a bit longer, I in a way prefer the opening through to the mids and a bit into the dry run of the original, but prefer the dry run of the Elixir over the dry run of the original. So like a fusion of these would definitely, at least to my nose, have been the best. So this is a tough one. It's almost a tie, because I do enjoy some aspects of the Elixir a bit more. The suede and the woodness is definitely really nice on the Elixir, but it does feel like I have something else with that combo in my collection, whereas I do feel the original brings something a bit more sort of original to my collection. However, like I previously mentioned, the unfortunate part of the original is that it does start to wear off a bit too soon. But even though this doesn't perform as well as the newer Elixir, I actually prefer the softness of the original, and I also really enjoy the sort of soft floral freshness that the original has. So if I would have to choose between these two, I would probably choose the OG. Rating these two was a bit tough, but I do think I'm gonna put both somewhere between 7 and 7.5. Both of these are very affordable scents and perfect for someone who absolutely loves woody scents with a focus on sandalwood that are a bit spicy and softly powdery. And I do not feel any of them are as good and as epic as Santal 33. So this is where I want to hear from you. How do you feel about the OG Energetically New York and the newer Elixir? Do you like them both? Do you hate them both? And which of these two do you prefer? And how would you rate them from 1 to 10? Drop a like, thank you, and make sure you subscribe for more, and make sure you check out my other fragrance videos over there.